The next big topic from FMI was about the use of audits. In the grocery business, as well as in most retail, audits are pervasive. They're really everywhere. They're not always called audits. They may be called something else. But the fact that policies are written in a corporate office and best practices are well described somewhere by leadership, and then they're pushed out to the store, almost indicates that there must be some sort of a follow-up then to ensure that you're executing against those policies. So the increased use of audits is a trend in grocery that's going to continue to grow. With the FDA's recent passage of the Food Safety Modernization Act this past December, food safety regulations will continue to get more stringent, both from, and as they say, it'll be from farm to fork, of which many retailers are a big part of that process in the supply chain, communication and contact with their growers and their suppliers, to transporting the goods to their stores, to finally selling them through POS. Companies are requiring a reinspection or recall so that they may comply with issues that are surrounding the Food Safety Modernization Act, but it's not really new. There's always been recalls that retail has had to deal with, but the expectation is continuing to grow. So one way that retailers, especially grocery retailers, can ensure they're in compliance is to monitor their execution of those policies on a day-to-day basis. Every 2 years, the FDA will be required to assess the most significant food risks and propose regulations to prevent any sort of an adulteration or a risk in the food supply line. And companies will be required to update their audits and processes regularly to meet these ever-changing requirements. So the stage is set for a field in the future that's going to require a nimble ability to comply with regulations, to quickly inspect your own policies and procedures inside of your stores to ensure execution, and then be prepared because those policies, procedures, regulations will need to change and will continue to evolve. So audits are a way that grocers will do that. It's a question of, are they going to be able to do that in an effective manner? In addition to audits, grocers streamline their processes and identify problems early so that they can achieve more consistent operational results. So today, audits in the past, and when you think about an audit, you can think about them in terms of maybe a store readiness checklist or a store opening checklist, or maybe there's a daily or weekly manager on duty requirement inside of your retail operation. Those things are really audits. And when you think about them in terms of those audits are inspections of processes, it really helps to make more sense of then what are your field team, maybe your district level, market level, whatever that next level group of leaders, when they come in the store, what are they trying to inspect? So currently, a lot of retailers are struggling with burdensome in-house built systems. They're recording their audits on Excel spreadsheets. They're pulling their policies online, or maybe they're carrying a manual around with them. And it's difficult to change course quickly. It's difficult to review audit results. It's difficult to pull and compare and do analytics on where you're succeeding and where you're failing. And a lot of times that leads to audits being sort of organically grown through the organization. So you end up with these confusing, very unclear questions because they're multiple part, or there are several components to a single question. And the time it takes to sit down and really look at your audit process from beginning to end is time well invested for a retailer, and that was one of those themes that sort of kept reoccurring. Lead time for reporting is another issue. In other words, when you send in those manual spreadsheets on an Excel format, there needs to be an analyst at the corporate office that then compiles those results and pulls them up and makes them visible to leaders on what those audit results were. So a lot of times that's taking, a week or 2 weeks after an audit cycle is completed to be able to have that information, and it makes it difficult to then effectively respond. So we talked about improving audits at FMI. So the areas that can be improved is audit design, how you can immediately react to exceptions or problems identified in the audits, and then how can you report effectively on those audits. And so the audit topic, as we wrap that up, it was, again, really across all types of retailers that were present at FMI. There were a number of things that allowed them to really begin to slice and dice their processes to build audits that made sense. Everything from looking at audits that are currently written and making a straight line through your daily, your weekly, your monthly audits, all the way up through your quarterly, more store operational performance review type audits. Preparedness was another topic that was really broad at FMI this year, and one with which the retailers that were attending paid a lot of attention. You know, preparedness, or your business continuity plan, or your emergency management plan, or your crisis management plan, whatever you may call that, is really no longer a nice to have. Preparedness is now top of mind in the grocery segment, with the unfortunate possibility of food contamination cases, natural disasters, potentially terrorist attacks. Grocers realize that preparedness is a way of business rather than a nice to have. For those that have not yet developed a preparedness plan, the key to start is really simple. Communicate a simple core message in order of priorities so that your employees will feel empowered with their decisions. It's one thing to have a very well-developed business continuity plan back at the corporate office. It's another thing to be able to effectively enact that plan when an unwanted event occurs. And so one of the keys to making sure that your people in the stores can take action when action is needed is to make sure that you simplify the message. The best plan in a binder on a shelf in an emergency operations center is useless to a store that's miles away, that's experiencing some sort of a weather emergency or a fire or a workplace violence situation. An emergency response plan should be outlined. It should outline vulnerabilities and plans, as well as provide key contacts inside and outside the organization in case of an emergency. Another key is to identify leaders in the group, and this may not identify people by rank. Some people are natural leaders in an emergency, and those are the people that you need to find. I think there's well-documented cases that most people in the business of loss prevention and retail really understand, and that crisis presents an opportunity, and a lot of times that opportunity continues to spiral the wrong direction for a retailer, whether it's dealing with a food recall where someone was sick and it originated at your store, or whether potentially someone bought something from your store and then used it in a situation like New York's Times Square, the attempted improvised explosive device in a vehicle that was left. And there are a number of cases where retailers are involved in those things, and being prepared to deal with them, identifying the people that understand the situation in the company and can accurately lead the company through a crisis is really different than key leadership on a daily basis. So takeaways: consider the trends and evaluate gaps in your policy. Consider how these things let you increase focus on critical issues and return to customer service. If you have no plans in place, then these areas that we mentioned are a good starting point. And then I encourage you, since you're on this webinar, you have interest in FMI, I encourage you to reach out to FMI as an organization, consider membership, consider what value it may be to your organization. And then as we leave, and I'll check the questions before we sign off, but as we leave, let me just also encourage you, if there are things that I can help you with, I'm certainly available for that. I'd welcome any email questions in response, and I would respond to those immediately, or you can call me directly. But I appreciate you all taking the time to be on our webinar. I hope the information we provided proves valuable to you. I did the best I could to move it along quickly, and so with that, I hope to hear from you all in the future. And I've checked the questions, and currently there are none, so I'll look forward to your email questions and with meeting with all of you in the future. Thank you.